UHA.
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 Ooh ha ha. What's up, YouTube? Today we have Ethan and Riley here at Kite Paddle Surf. We've got Armstrong's new UHA ultra high aspect front foil wings here. We've been lucky enough to be trying these here in beautiful La Ventana. We've had a great week of wind. We've been taking these things winging. We've also been both kind of figuring out the parawing thing. These have been a really good fit for that. But we just wanted to sit down. This might not be a full review, but we're going to try to just give our initial impressions, maybe talk a little bit about who these foils are for, what skill level and disciplines they'd be suited for, and maybe get into some sizing and comparing to the current just high aspect foils from Armstrong. So Riley, what have you been riding here and what disciplines?
I have primarily been riding this 670 UHA. I've also spent a good bit of time on the 770. I think for me, coming off of primarily riding the HA 680 and 780, I've mostly been wing foiling, but now I've been dabbling with the parawing. So having that little extra bit of glide, well, maybe a lot of bit of extra glide, has been really nice. I think for me, the 670 strikes a nice balance if I'm going to be primarily wing foiling or parawinging in, more powered up wave conditions, where, something like the 770, 870, maybe even 970 would probably be my go-to for parawinging in smaller waves. Fortunately, this week we've had some nukers, so the 670 has been super fun. Been going back and forth winging and parawinging this, and yeah, the glide with these is just insane. You can, you keep it high and you can just go forever.
Yeah.
While still being super fun to ride.
Yeah. I think one thing a lot of people who are going to be on, or if you're currently riding the current high aspect foils from Armstrong, I think it's always can be a little tricky to think about sizing and lift characteristics. What would you say the lift characteristics of these are in terms of sizing compared to the HA? So if you're riding the 680 winging, does the 670, do you think, have a little more initial lift or about the same?
Maybe slightly more initial lift.
I think they have a little more initial lift than the HA of that same size, but not a big shift. I think like the MAs versus the HAs, it was a bigger difference.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about, if you're riding an HA V2 right now, the equivalent UHA is probably one size down from that in terms of, ride characteristics. Like just if you're talking, the closest comparison. But we're finding a lot of people are kind of going more with the same, coming off a 780 and going to a 770, and getting that big boost in terms of glide, especially people that are transitioning from winging to parawinging.
Yeah, and it's discipline specific sizing, of course, too. You're gonna take that into consideration. I think like the most notable improvement of these foils, or like really nice characteristic to have, is that they are just faster than the current HAs, especially maybe not, I mean, under power, yes, but like when you're under power of a wave and you're trying to keep up with fast moving ground swell, these do a much better job at being able to keep you in the wave. And we definitely noticed that here. I know like we had a big north wind day, big open water ground swell, and I know I would not have been able to keep up with it on just like a current HA, but the smaller UHA foils really allowed you to just kind of, if you kept it high, you just excel. And I think that's a huge benefit. That's going to be more site specific for riders. Like not everyone's going to have big ground swell that moves pretty fast, but if you're someone who's in big open water ground swell, like these foils are really, really going to improve you're riding and what you're able to do at your local zone.
Mm-hmm. As far as, fun to ride, turning characteristics, that sort of thing, I think that was a big concern, for me and people that I've talked to coming off either HA foils, even people that are riding, MA foils for wing foiling. Obviously you've got quite a wide span with these.
Yeah, totally.
So you do, you definitely lose a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's sort of a fun feeling to it.
Yeah, they still feel very fluid.
Yeah.
They're not like clunky, but yeah, of course they're not going to turn as well as a shorter wingspan foil.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the trade-off you're going to get. They work really well with the Dart 120. Any small stabilizer, I think you're really going to see a lot of benefits, especially if you're worried about the turning. Pitch stability, what would you say about pitch stability when you're like on wave power, going fast down a wave?
It's so smooth.
It's extremely smooth.
Yeah, like very consistent. I feel like, yeah, you like you said, these things are fast. So
Yeah.
you definitely get moving faster than I was used to on some waves. On bigger days, I would typically be on, either a 680 HAV2 or, 690, 790 MA Mark II. So riding these, you get going quick. And yeah, the inputs required, I would say, are pretty minimal to keep it smooth when you're kind of mocking down one of those bigger
you kind
open swells.
Yeah, felt like pretty relaxed, going super fast. Not a lot of like micro adjustments.
And you feel it going upwind too.
They
don't kick a whole lot.
Yeah,
they're really smooth through the water. Yeah, I think I noticed that first with those MA Mark II foils, is just how buttery smooth they were through the water. And these have whatever that special sauce is too, that is just super smooth, up and downwind, and just really fluid rail to rail. Super fun to ride.
Let's talk about I think it's kind of been interesting. I think if you're progressing really well, if you're newer to foiling and you're progressing well on a lower aspect beginner foil, I think we've gotten to a point where you can transition to like a high aspect foil off of maybe a smaller low aspect foil. It might be harder, would definitely be easier to go to the MA first, but they're not cheap. We know a lot of local people who have gone straight to like a bigger HA foil. Do you think you could see someone who's riding maybe an 1850 or whatnot? Do you think making that, maybe they're like, oh, I really am stoked on parawinging. Like I eventually want to get into parawing, do downwinding, or just like downwind with the wing. I need an efficient foil. The MA is not really going to do that for me. I'm thinking about the high aspect foil, or now that these UHAs are out, do you think that someone at my beginner-ish skill level, do you think they can make that jump?
They're pretty friendly. I think, if parawinging or, winging with sort of a downwind focus is where you're trying to head, I would say these are definitely worth a look. I don't think that, the skill level required to ride these is going to be much, if any, higher than the HAV2s.
No. Yeah.
Get ready to go fast. That's going to be the big change coming off of a low aspect foil, is you're going to be going a lot quicker. But yeah, I would say if people are looking for that, downwind flow, parawinging, winging, whatever you're doing, and you want to be able to link those bumps up and just glide forever, I could see somebody jumping straight into one of these.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't go for, the 670 right off the bat.
No,
but,
definitely not.
One of the bigger sizes, certainly.
And I think it's also just important to note and like talk about just the HA foils, and like those are still so fun. They're phenomenal. They're in line at Armstrong. They're going to be around for a while.
Definitely.
I think those are probably those are going to be the most versatile foil in the lineup. If you think about like not specializing in anything, They turn well. They have great glide, good speed. So I think, especially for like wing foiling in our local area in Bellingham, you know, we don't have the super big ocean swell. Some people don't want to sacrifice the turn for these ones. If you're just winging, you don't need like the most glide ever. Yeah, mid-size HAs are still going to be very relevant.
Definitely. I think for parawinging though, specifically, what if you were getting into parawinging? Are you going HA, or would you go, you know, straight to one of these?
If I was getting into parawinging, I would get one of these. Although I did learn to parawing on the 980, and it was like pretty perfect. You know, I mean, I think it's kind of interesting to think about. I was thinking about this yesterday, like writing these and being like, oh my gosh, they have so much glide, yada yada. That's exactly how it was when we tried the HA foils for the first time.
Definitely.
So yeah, I was super happy on the 980 for parawinging. I think if I were like getting into parawinging, I've been writing the 770. I'd go a little bigger. I'd probably go with the 870, maybe even the 970, depending on where you're at, what the conditions are like, your weight, all that. But I think that's going to be like the best foil to really help you progress and, you know, long stashed rides.
Definitely.
I'd say, yeah, if you have any other questions or want to talk to us in person at the shop or over the phone, you know, leave a comment down below, give us a call. Like always, like and subscribe to this video. If you've been riding these or have any thoughts or any experience, leave them down below. Looks like the wind's picking up here in La Ventana, so we're gonna get out there. See you on the next one.